So when we spoke on the last video, spoke about food and when you'd changed your diet for a while and you'd
Yeah.
recognised the benefits of that. So, quite often when people do that and they start to eat um, fruit and vegetables, the food that we're supposed to eat anyway that grows, um, they find it difficult to wonder what to eat. What shall I eat? And so I just wanted your experience of you wondering what to eat. Was that like that for you, or what was?
It was a bit of the opposite, really. It was
Yes.
because I'd gone from very much calorie counting everything, so I was quite rigid in what I ate. I ate a ready meal, which I knew had the calorie content in, and I ate vegetables. And dinner time for my tea, dinner time was a packet sandwich with calories on, so I knew what I was having. So it was like a ham or chicken salad in bread. I could work out the calories easily. My tea were a rotation of a fish pie with 256 in, a beef lasagna, which was 212, and can't remember the other one now. And I ate it. I ate about 3 different versions of ready meals on a rota with a pile of vegetables, and I ate that on a rota for a good chunk of years, so for sort of like maybe 10, 15 years. That's all I ate was ready meals and vegetables.
So what you're ultimately saying is that when you changed to vegetables
Yeah.
because you were eating vegetables anyway.
Yeah.
You said
Yeah. So it was like
within
that was quite restrictive, really, to say that I could have eaten anything, because
Yes.
I was paranoid about calories and what I was eating. It had to be the same, because it made I think, well, if I ate that and I was okay, if I eat it again, I'm going to be okay. And when I switched over to I didn't see it as a diet. It was the first time I thought, right, I'm going to take this self-care business, and really, it isn't just, I learned self-care isn't just buying yourself a bunch of flowers every now and again and it makes you happy. I'd look and go, all right, I bought some flowers. Yeah, well, nothing's changed. I really took on board that I needed to start looking after myself from the damage that I'd done. So just like that, I decided, right, no ready meals, no processed food, no sort of products and manufactured things. So for a lot of people, I can see that me going, oh my goodness, that's so restrictive if you're just eating fresh fruit, veg salad, and all those kind of things. But for me, it was, wow, so much choice.
Because if you imagine, if we say that you were to go into a supermarket and take everything out of the packets, you take everything out of the packets and put it on the floor, and you have a look and see what's in the packets. Well, it's majority of the same thing. So the majority of the same thing, ultimately the majority of the same thing is that you're eating chemicals. So it's like they're just different flavoured chemicals, but ultimately the biggest flavour that you're after, because it's salt, sugar, and fat. So that's your diet ultimately on this stuff. But the biggest chemical that you're after is sweet, is the sugar. And so when you go to vegetables, you're gonna, it's like for some it's difficult. It says there's no salt, there's no sugar, and there's no fat. So for you, when you went to vegetables, what there is, with so well, it's the same sugar. It's not the same sugar that's in fruit anyway, and some vegetables. But for you, you could see the array of vegetables, that they are, rather than the packet things. Because when you're having a look and you're saying every product, even as I call dead bodies, but I know the word is meat to make it palatable. But even the mutated bodies on the aisles, they're lasting like that, so they don't rot. They're full of chemicals, so you get a bit more bang for your buck, really. You see what I mean? Or really, you get ripped off, because ultimately You're paying for these things that aren't going to do your body any good. And so what happens then is that for most people is they become hungry. And for a lot of people, when they change the diet, one of the thoughts is, I'm going to be hungry. And so the reason why they think they're going to be hungry is because they're already hungry on this diet of chemicals. Because what the body says is, I'm still hungry, you've not fed my cells.
And that was one of my worries, because I thought, oh, I'm going to end up eating more. I'm going to eat, because the natural stuff, fruit and vegetables. I didn't stop eating meat. I ate organic meat, grass-fed meat, that was from the farm shop without everything, you know, added and stuff. So I cut down, but I didn't stop. Actually, I don't even think I cut down. It was just different.
Yes.
I probably ate more meat because it was different quality, and I got excited by that rather than it just being in a frozen lasagna that I got from the supermarket. I was thinking, oh, well, I can barbecue it. I can do it like this. I can do it like this. I can do it. And I'd not had that before.
It give you a big variety.
I was quite excited about it. And normally food's been my enemy throughout my life. But I was actually quite excited, thinking, oh, what can I do with that? And what can I mix it with? And that kind of thing. And actually for me, I ended up cooking my first chicken ever. And that was when I was like about 44 or something like that, because I was so used to just buying things already done for me in a packet with a calorie count on, rather than using fresh stuff. So it was a real eye-opener. I got excited about it, and I did have that fear that I'd end up eating more calories. I did have that fear that I know a curly whirly is so much calories, and I know it's got sugar in, but you're saying have this fruit, and I know it's got same in, so why can't I just? But I learned about how the body process different kind of products.
So what's happening then inside your body, as you feel it, is that you have to eat more.
Yeah.
You have to eat more on the fruit and veg, especially not so much if you're eating meat, but if you're not, you have to eat more. The reason being is that, you know, when people talk about nutritionists and only then can give you advice on food, and yet we all eat it. And all animals are nutritionists. They know how to eat and what to eat, and yet we don't. Well, there's always an argument or a debate or something like that. So you see it, and I'm not a nutritionist, apart from being a natural one, ultimately having a relationship with food that says to my body, it's full, this is what you're eating, and when it's not full, because if you watch an animal, they graze all day. And so when you're eating vegetables, and there's an array of vegetables and fruit out there, you can just graze all day on them, and you know when you're full, you can feel it. And you're not full because you've filled up your stomach. Do you see what I mean? So there's a difference. There's a difference in, you know, as I said, when you were in hospital, you can fill something up with anything, just get the right weight, or you can fill something up with the right thing, and, you know, the weight doesn't go on, you just become your normal weight. And there's no thing as calories, because it just factors all that out, because that calories aren't in nature, they're in the human being, the made up stories.
It was still there, obviously. It didn't solve an eating disorder, but it helped change my relationship with food, coming from experiencing anorexia nervosa and binge eating disorder. During the period when I did alter my diet to eat more natural things without chemicals and more processed things, the eating disorder voice was at its lowest. It was still there, but I was able to shut it off because I was focusing on being healthy. The thoughts about binging weren't there, and the actions weren't there.
And you see what you said, the biggest key is that it's what I was focusing on. Yeah, so that's what we become, what we focus on. So when people say, I don't know what to eat, is because they're still focusing on the old diet or the way that they are. And when you change into doing, eating healthy food that we're supposed to eat, the one that made us, no human being, as I say, can make a human being. So the one that made us gave us the food to eat. So when you eat that food, if you switch your focus onto it was exciting, this is amazing, look at all this food I can eat, I can just try this, and you'd excited your brain and began to focus on that. But unfortunately, because there's a called brain mapping, and the mapping was changed, the excitement lasts for a certain length of time, and then the ego voice comes back in, and then you revert back to norm, because that's what we do.
And for me, norm, it was an eating disorder.
Was the eating disorder, so you kind of slip back, into that, unless you continually want to focus on wellness. Yeah, so everything that we do is what we're focused on, and it's like, if I focus on being a drinker, if I focus on being a smoker, if I focus on eating certain foods, they're my focus. But every time I'm going to turn, and then we become like an hamster on a wheel in the same pattern.
Yeah, definitely.
So for you, where's your pattern in this now?
Because I think my norm is to abuse myself with food and use food as both a conscious and unconscious coping mechanism. It was really hard for me once external stresses started coming back into my life and difficulties. My normal responses became, I wasn't able to, I found it very much to maintain focusing on the wellness while trying to deal with the stresses that were coming back in from those around me, situations, and dealing with issues from the past and those kind of things. I couldn't deal with those and look after myself, because my default when I'm dealing with those is to harm myself.
Yeah, because if you look at, as we've discussed before, the Hawkins levels of consciousness. So my view is that we start at the top level of consciousness, which is bliss. And we're born with bliss. We're born as we should be. And then, as I say, when children start to get programmed, they get that beautiful smile wiped off the face. And so when they start to get programmed and go into the prison, which is school, and then they get ready for the prison, which is work, their levels of consciousness begin to come down. So the majority of people's levels of consciousness is judgments, anger, frustration, fear, anxiety. That level is the lowest level of consciousness, and that level is called hell in Hawkins level of consciousness. So you went back to hell because you'd risen above, is the first level, which is hell, and the second level, and then the third level is hope. So there was a bit of hope.
Yeah, I think for the first time in my life that, like, I'd not experienced being excited about something. I couldn't remember having, not having to calorie count everything. It was looking after myself was a new, novel experience and that kind of thing. So I was sort of like in kind of like a nice bubble sort of thing.
Okay.
And
Do
then,
you think you've got to the next level then, to purgatory? Have you?
I think I was in that hope thing, and this is how life can be different, because the level of self-harm and all those kind of negative behaviours, whether it was the food that was affecting that, or that I was spreading out that theme of self-caring for myself, or into other things other than just food. But I think, like a lot of things, and like, it felt like, how I can describe it is, when you go on holiday and you think, oh, when can I go back to my routine? And it was like that. I was craving to go back to the OCD, the security, the routine. It was so
Is
unknown.
it secure, really? Yeah, because when you think about it, when you think about being in hell, then everybody's going to help you out that are in hell with that.
Yeah, it's
So
just
when
that
you
it was
think
known.
about-
It wasn't security.
Yeah.
It was just known. I wanted to go back. It's like,
It's made available for you, though, readily available. If you think about when you go to the supermarket, it's readily available for you to self-harm because the food harms you. So even when you're not intended to self-harm, you're going to self-harm, aren't you, because of the food that you're eating. As you said, the processed food and, you know, food with chemicals in. So that's already a form of self-harm. And then even the water we drink, tap water, is a form of self-harm because of the chemicals in it and what it causes for the human body. So do you think then, in this level of consciousness, that actually it is easier to go back home because majority of people are in it?
yeah,
And when you come out of it as well, what some people have found is that in their, you know, homogeneous group of people sat in the parapet, as we say, when you're all sat there, if somebody wants to rise above that and do something different, the group's going to say, no, don't do anything different. So quite often people have found when they've changed to start to eat healthier food, other people around them might say, well, it's too hard for you to do that. You're expecting too much of yourself. And, you know, come up.
or you're denying yourself. I was allowing myself more things,
Yes.
more variety,
So you
more freedom
experience that as well.
on this whatever protocol diet or whatever than what I did before, because having an eating disorder is very, very restrictive.
Yes.
But people didn't see that. People just thought, oh, you're denying yourself. Why are you denying yourself this? And I actually felt more freedom. Something as silly as types of fruit. I'd always been frightened of eating grapes. Like the little bags of sugar, don't eat them. So even though I'd binge or I'd eat ready meals or things with the same amount of calories in, I always had that little phobia of grapes. But when I was just eating natural stuff, it was like, yay, I ate loads and I felt healthier. I felt more clearer in my mind. People said that I looked better, as in my skin looked better, my eyes looked a different colour, my nails were stronger, my hair wasn't as in bad condition, and yeah, and I think for me, I don't know why, it's just as soon as it started, as quickly as it started, it would as quickly as it stopped, that it just went, I went back to harming myself, went back to eating all the processed food. And you can't unlearn things, because as I'm doing it now, I'll be like, I went to McDonald's the other day with my mum, and I said, do you know what the worst thing is in McDonald's? This fry has got like 10 chemicals in, and you'd only think it's a potato, but it didn't stop me eating them.
No, because by that time,
and it's like I know it now,
yeah,
but it's not stopping me.
Becomes not is normalised in society because everybody does it. So it's awful. You watch everybody poisoning their children with this food because, you know, we're trusting, aren't we? We trust people. We trust labels because I think one of the, you know, there seem to be many gods, but majority of people pray to these many gods, not realizing that that's what they're doing. And instead of looking to the one that created us, instead the first god is our narcissistic ego. And so there's a chattering voice in our head, the internal dialogue, which is always, majority of the time, negative. And so then you know that, you know, well, I must be in hell because it's always negative. And it always thinks it knows better. The next god is labels. We love to pray to the god of labels because who doesn't want a fancy label to make themselves feel good enough in you know, in this level of consciousness. And then the god after that, and there are many others, is the money god. And don't we all, you know, so it's like in this level, in this pit, in this level of consciousness, this low level of consciousness, is where everybody is chasing around to get the very things that they're already bigger than anyway. And so you can see how society helps you out with self-harm because you're born into it.
And that's another fantasy that it's just coming to my head now to pick up on. When people talk about food and things like that, when you say about organic or farm fresh, you know, those kind of things, or fresh fruit and stuff like that.
What does that mean, though? What do these fresh things mean?
I don't know.
I mean,
but when you're talking
you're
about...
not going to sell stale food. Ultimately, yes, you are going to be sold stale food.
But going on a fresh fruit, vegetables and organic or decent meat, which hasn't been pumped with chemicals, there's that fantasy that you get through the media that it's going to be, it's cost so expensive, we can't buy it. I saved loads of money eating fresh stuff, buying fresh stuff, than I did buying ready meals and packaged things and processed things and that kind of thing.
And ultimately, who's being robbed anyway? Because if you think, well, you're buying poison, so do you think that it's a bargain that you're buying poison and you're poisoning your body or you're poisoning your family and they're going to be ill from it? So what price? Do you see what I mean? Where is the sense in that? What price have we all paid, you know, me included, from being born into an abusive world that hasn't got, from my opinion, my best interest at heart? And so I've had to learn, as you, kind of waking up really to seeing the reality of the world that we're in, that it doesn't have the planet's best interest at heart, and we are the planet. It doesn't have our best interest at heart either.
I found it really interesting learning, and I'm still continually, yes, I'm not like what I was before. I have progressed a little bit, even though I've gone back to abusing myself with food, but I have kept elements of it, and I'm continuing my learning because I want to go back to it. I just need to deal with some stuff, I feel, to break the ties with the old ego that's there.
Yeah, it's just letting it go. It's not dealing with it. The only way you can deal with the ego chatter is to be able to let it go.
But learning about how the body, because I've normally hated my body and historically not liked it, not wanted to give any attention to it, only wanted to cause it pain and upset, as a consequence of what happened when I was little. But learning about it, as in what the different foods are doing, and even though they might have same calories in, but because they've been processed this way, it affects this. It's a real eye-opener. I found it really interesting, and probably become a bit of a bore with it, really, saying, you know what that's been through, and this, that and the other. And
but the point is to get really interested, rather than, you know, there's blindness and then there's willful blindness, where people just, they know but they don't care, and that's a difference. And, you know, I think as well that when you're looking and saying your brain's been changed, it was changed as you were being brainwashed with certain things, and when you go through abuse it gets changed, and, you know, the brain gets changed into many things that people put into it when you're a child, and then you know, it depends on what you believe, you come out and you believe about yourself. After that, none of it what is true. It can never be true, but, you know, ultimately people believe certain things, so, and it's the same thing with food and things like that. So what I'm saying is that if you want to abuse yourself, the society will help you do that. It will definitely help you do that, because for you, we got everything that we've learned from society, so we know that. You know, that is exactly what it will help you to do.
And also, what I've noticed as well, people in your circle, your network, whether it's parents or anything, that because they're believing as well what's on the media or this about food or whatever, it colludes with like the ego. And in fact, my mum doesn't think she is. She thinks she's trying to help me in the best will of the world. But actually, a lot of the stuff that she says and does colludes with the eating disorder and the voice in my head, which is harmful. But she thinks she's doing the right thing because she's been brought up and lived by all the messages she's heard and what have been passed down to her and things like that. So yeah, it's my ego at the minute is very, very dominant, and I want to work on that to go back to looking after myself and being.
And that's the point. That's the problem that people think they have to work. It's the ego that's telling you have to work on it. You have to leave it.
I guess you're right. Because when you approached the idea of doing that and changing the food I ate to see what impact that had on my well-being, I just did it there and then. I didn't have to work on it. I just went, oh, all right then.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's like anything. When there's a war out there, there's all these wars and things that go on because there's all these egos that are playing out, and so we're always going to see that until it stops. And so the point is that the only way to not listen to the ego is to walk away from it. Do you see? You don't have to argue with it. You don't have to barter with it. You don't have to plead with it. You don't do any of those things. You just focus on something else. It's like watching, you might have watched a TV program and thought, why on earth did I watch that? It was a lot of rubbish. Yeah? And that's exactly what you watch every day in your own head. But you think it's attached to you. You think it's talking about you. And that's why it's called a character. You're called a character. We have this character type or this character type. It's not talking about you. It's talking about a character you've built from your experiences that you believe you. And it's like this character that you believe that's chattering this internal. So as I say, I call it the schizophrenic voice because people do as it says, as it tells them to do. But it's not talking to you. You'll hear the word, oh, you stupid, look at you silly cow. Well, you've dropped that. And then, when you hear it say that, you think it's talking to you. The brain is a recording machine. It's a machine that records information and it just plays it back to you over and over again. And then you build a character and think, oh, that's me. It's like, it's not you.
Yeah.
You are the one that was born at the high level, when you were a child with a smile on your face, got buried with all the crap that was put onto you from the environment around you, all the junk food that you were fed. This is the way this world works, and this world is ill. And this is what we do in this sickness, because the ego is a narcissist, and it chatters and it always believes it's right, and you believe what it says, and it tells us to do the most ridiculous things to our bodies and to each other, the most nastiest things, and it makes sense. Then that's why the level of consciousness is the low level of hell. Because, we're not going to hell, we're in it already.
The ego can be very, in my experience, can be very, well, it has, it's damaged all my life, but can be very, very destructive, very, very damaging and very harmful.
That's it, and our responsibility is to focus on something else. I'm not saying that, sometimes we don't rise up a little bit and have a bit of niceness going on and then we go back to type, but you're just doing what the majority of human beings do. And I don't know all of the human beings do it, because I know some don't, but that's why I just say the majority of what human beings do. And, there has to be, for me anyway, to answer that question, to why other human beings would elect to poison and put chemicals in our food that isn't good for us. That's the only answer that I can rationalise.